Hello and welcome to the Just Another Castle podcast. I'm your host Matt, and with me this week is our resident gaming journalist Eli.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Our pro gamer Mike.
I'm outside.
And our richer aficionado Unoclay.
Uh-oh.
There you go, you little fuckers. There's some chocolate for you.
That's not chocolate, that's poop.
It's not chocolate, nor is it poop. It's shit.
What up, guys? You'll understand why I use an AVGN clip then in a few minutes. How you guys doing?
Oh gosh, so weird.
That's not shit, that's poop.
That should be the name of the episode.
Stealing right off the most famous YouTuber, definitely.
We peaked so early.
Yeah. Alright, so I guess we'll try to keep it short this week. We'll start with what we've been playing. I've been playing Snake Pass, which the crew nicely gifted me last week. I put that in the podcast after, but yeah, no, it was, thanks for that.
Like
it's really
hour
nice.
Mark. You might explain that because they would have had to listen to 2 hours and like 10 minutes.
Well, I have timestamps. I actually timestamped it, but okay. Mike came up with an idea to gift me Snake Pass since I was talking about it on the cast, and they all pitched in and got it for me. And I got to play it for a couple levels. I think the game has like 20 levels or something like that. I forget. But I think each world has 4 levels, and I beat the first world. So I've only played 4 levels so far, but I'm liking it so far. It takes some getting used to. When I first started off, I'm like, oh geez, am I never going to get this down or what? Because this seems...
I hear it's super hard to control. I've heard that because it's very different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you watch someone like play gameplay and you're like, man, what a loser, like they can't do this. It's like, no, it actually takes some getting used to do that. So unlike most games, you actually have to swivel left and right to move forward. There is a button that like you hold to kind of accelerate or whatever you want, but you slow down pretty quickly, so you have to move left and right kind of like a snake to move forward. And then it's all about bobbing your head at the right time, and then there's another one where you can like grip around objects like bamboo shoots and whatnot, and it's all about like getting the timing right. So learning that kind of flow takes a bit, and I'm actually just toying around with it right now. It's pretty fun to just like move around once you get used to it. And like I said, by the 4th level, you start getting used to it. It just takes a few levels to get through. So it's a puzzle game. How you play is there's 3, I guess, main treasures you have to get to finish the level. And then there's a bunch of blue orbs you can find scattered across the world. Most of them are easy to find. Some of them are hidden. Some of them are hard. And then you have like 5 coins, which are kind of like the star coins from Mario, where they're either hidden or hard to get. And the even harder thing is, so there will be like a bamboo shoot hanging off of a cliff or something. And even if you, actually no, I can't say that. I was going to say if you get it and you die, you still don't collect it, but I'm not sure because I actually didn't collect that one, so I can't say. But no, I'm liking it. I definitely want to get back more into it. If it looks like your cup of tea from watching it, I think you'll like it pretty quickly. If there's no demo, so you can't really like try it to see if you like it first, but I'd say it's worth giving it a shot.
It's a
platform, right?
Yeah.
It's a world game.
Yeah, Mike.
That was kind of when I first saw it. I thought like Chameleon Twist, and I thought like, is it like Super Mario 64? Is there an open world? And I was like kind of confused because it says like it's platform, but it's totally a different take on it. I can see it's a very unique game. So.
Yeah. Unoclay, you were gonna say something?
I'm just gonna say you better damn well like it after we spend our hard-earned cash on it.
Yeah, man, it's freaking it costs $400. We got you the only
I know.
physical edition. On
the premium edition.
We actually had to pay a shady dude to turn our dollars into Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
He charged like $300 transfer fee, you know.
Yeah,
we went all out, and then Matt's thinking like, why don't you just buy me a PS4, Switch, and Xbox One instead of? Or like, man, we know you love snakes and passing.
But in seriousness, so it's like a 3D and like action platformer / collect. on?
Yeah,
Like,
it's not
or-
really like action or anything. I don't think there's any enemies in the game.
How do you
not that
kill
I've seen.
enemies?
I
Oh,
don't,
you don't-
think there are. Like I said, I only beat like the first world, and I didn't see any enemies. Maybe there are
Okay.
later, but I don't know any button that eats or anything unless they like blocked off what the buttons do. But yes, it's really just moving around. The accelerate button, the kind of bob your head button, which is like if you want to move upward, you hold it, and then the like grip button. So if you think you're gonna fall or something and you want to be more careful, you can like hold on to something more tightly, so you don't fall off.
So that's
Because,
Snake
yeah.
Pass first impressions from Matt. You're giving it like a want to see more kind of grade. You're kind of like maybe pretty good, like kind of want to experiment before you give it a final grade kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, I'm just having fun playing around with it right now,
Right.
just moving
right.
around. Because
Can I
once you
ask-
start getting the feeling of it, it's like, oh, okay, like you can get through it. Because before, one of the levels gets kind of hard because if you fall, then you have to restart it. So I was like moving a couple inches and then holding on or gripping together, and now I'm just like kind of moving around it. So it's really cool.
Can I ask one other thing? Like one of the things I'm looking at a lot with the more games I get, I think I only have 5 or 6 games for my Switch.
Mhm.
Not like Eli, who's gotten a bunch, it sounds like. But like one of the main things I keep looking at, because I think it's going to be a big point about the system in the long run, like and the history of the system, is like how games look when they're docked versus when they're on the tablet. And have you compared it? Did you notice if it looks like optimized for TV? Or is it like look okay on TV, great on gamepad, or anything like that? Any kind of observations?
I don't remember how much better it looks docked, but I'm pretty sure it looks better docked because I can tell it's kind of like fuzzy on the gamepad. That's like one of
Interesting.
the first things I noticed. But I mean,
Okay.
like you can ignore it.
Yeah.
Once you get into it.
I ask because like what my worry is the opposite, which is like with Blaster Master Zero, I personally feel like you can tell this game was built for a 3DS or a small screen, and then when you put it on the big screen, I don't think it looks that good. It's still a decent game, too easy, but decent game if you're a fan of Blaster Master. But like I was like, ooh, is this going to be like this system's legacy? Like some games just are so obviously the portable game, and then some games are so obviously like the Zeldas and the ARMS of the world, like look awesome on the big screen, kind of thing, So. Yeah, okay. I was just curious about that. So you think it might have looked a little better on the TV for Snake Pass? All right.
All right.
You know.
Hey, quick thing, by the way, not related to Snake Pass, but related to me figuring it out. So I realized that one of the reasons they probably raised the cost is not only because of Canadians and the fact that you're dollar deflated,
Mhm.
but the fact that
They can get
the
away
fact that
with it.
Americans could theoretically make Canadian eShop accounts and buy games because it's now region free. And I was thinking about this and I started looking and searching deeper. And so here's a quick tip. If you're an American, if you're buying a game digitally, check the Canadian price first, because not all games are more expensive there in terms of the nominal amount. Like there are games, and some are even cheaper, like even if they are more expensive. So for example, I looked up Shovel Knight, 12 Canadian dollars in USD, $9. That'll save you $1. Some aren't at all any more expensive, and that'll save you 25% on a game. So I was very like surprised that nobody's really like communicated this before.
So here's, I think, the problem with that. As far as I know, oh wait, no, maybe never mind.
I mean,
No,
and
never
I know,
mind. I think you can just make another eShop account.
yeah, in two ways. And so you could either buy a Canadian points card as we did, or you could just, my credit card doesn't have a foreign transaction fee, so I could just literally use that to add funds.
Mhm.
But
So
I just thought that was some interesting stuff I found out.
you should break that on, first of all, on your on Nintendo Enthusiast. You should probably write this up and see if you can get people to poke a hole in your theory, because it is really interesting, and like crowdsource like what are we missing here kind of thing. But the second thing is like there might be people listening that don't really know what we're talking about. And just to summarize in short order, you can make foreign what would you call it, avatars.
You can just make an account. So you can make a like a My Nintendo account or whatever you use. I forgot what infrastructure Nintendo uses for to store your account information. But you just make one and list your country as Canada instead of the US. Add it as a second profile on your Nintendo Switch, and then go on there to buy your games on the second profile instead of your main one.
Right.
And it'll automatically go to the Canadian eShop.
And that's why, like, for people who might not know, you can download Japanese games that haven't been ported to the United States. Now, that comes with the caveat that it's going to have Japanese text or Japanese voices, but, some games it doesn't matter. So,
yeah. One of the reasons I found this out, which I thought was funny, is so right now I'm having this phase where I think I'm going to start taking Spanish again in the fall. So, to get ready, I'm starting to move my media into Spanish just so that I can, get used to the language again after not taking it for 2 years. So, I've turned Mass Effect into Spanish, and so I went on online to see if I could turn Ever Oasis, since I'm still playing some of that, into Spanish. And I just found threads about, games that you could change into a different language. And someone imported Japanese games and was asking whether they would have English in them, before they released in the West. And I was just thinking, man,
Oh, I see what you're saying. I didn't follow what you're saying.
Yeah, no, he asked so he imported a game from Japan before it came out in the US and asked whether it would have English. And I'm like, someone's critical thinking skills are lacking a little bit today.
Yeah. That's probably just a bias of being an American or an English speaker, because we just assume everyone else speaks our language.
Well, the thing is, I think some games actually do have I forget. I've heard of some cases where it's they have an English, whatever. Maybe not for an RPG, but they have an English text in there as well. I don't remember.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I think that's true. I
definitely not for RPGs, because that would just take too long. But
yeah,
I think for some games they do have an English thing, and then let's say Yoshi, for example. It's possible there was an English whatever thing done when the Japanese one released, but then we didn't get until 6 months later, and that was after Europe got it or something. So it could just be it's done. It's just weird release schedules.
Yeah, because why not? Why not just pack it in there?
Because why not? How about it? Well, that's some interesting thinking, Eli, and that's a good way to prep and learn or rehearse a language. I don't know if you could learn a language very easily from the ground up.
Yeah, no, I don't think from the ground up. But the thing is, I took Spanish for 4 years, and I did pretty well on an exam, so I came in with credit. And because I came in with credit, they want to throw me into a 300 level course, and I'm just terrified. So I'm trying to get all the practice I can get.
It'll come back. I hadn't used any of my college level and master's level Spanish until I went to Spain a few years ago, and then by the end of the week, I was able to speak enough crappy Spanish that I would just confuse people, but I could understand them. So it was hey, it'll come back. And I hadn't used it for a decade almost when that happened to me. So I think you'll do fine. Especially since.
I'll have you know, I've studied French for several years, and I don't know a lick of it. I remember in high school, I think grade 9 or 10 was the last time we had to take it, and I did okay at it. And 2 weeks later, I forgot it because I never had to use it. I'm well, that was pointless, just all the other years.
You got to go up to Quebec or Montreal.
I know, the only place in Canada that speaks French.
Yeah, you got to get up there and use it, man.
You just got to kick them out and then kick off all the French labels. Taking up half the space. You Frenchies. Actually, just kidding. I want to point out a minor flaw in what you're talking about with eShop accounts. So I made a Japanese account so I could download the Dragon Quest Heroes demo or whatever. And then, I had it up there and blah, blah, blah. I was playing it. It was fine. And then I went back out, and then it's oh, here's news. Here's half of it's English and half of it's Japanese. So you're also getting the Japanese news. I'm can I not turn this off so I don't get notifications all the time? And then I searched it up, and it's nope, you can't clear it. The only way to do it is to soft reset the console and set it to manufacturer default the console or reset or whatever the console, and then reset the language. And then just restart it. I'm well, that's kind of dumb. So I guess
Are you-
I'll just not use the Japanese account for a while.
Yeah, I have the same thing, man. It's all over the news. So it's just like F. Like you can't get rid of it. Like I've tried. I was like, maybe if I delete my Japanese account, I'll be good. But
So explain again what exactly is happening to your. I don't think I quite understand.
So he's getting the notifications for news from both.
Japanese and English, yeah. Because I have both accounts on like.
I mean, the
console.
solution is obviously now you have to buy 2 separate systems, one for each language.
Clearly.
No, I mean in real talk, if you are one of those people that wants to save a few bucks on these games, like, are you really gonna care?
Yeah. Well, it was just to like try out a demo that wasn't like anywhere else.
And so you're saying really, but I mean, just to not to minimize it, but like all that really is happening is like your news feed on the Switch has 2 announcements for everything, is what you're saying. Like a Japanese. Okay, I could live with that. I mean, it is cluttered. That's cluttered, but like whatever,
Yeah, like I said, it's minor. It's a me problem.
Yeah. I'm just making sure I understood what was happening because like I've thought about doing it and I haven't region locked my system at all because there's been nothing that I heard of that I was dying to play from another region. But this whole saving a couple bucks thing that Eli is sniffing out is definitely interesting. So we got to figure out what the cheapest region is and then like get those accounts going and then we're on to something for sure.
Yeah, except the problem is some regions don't get all the games. And actually, I mean, I think the US is pretty clearly the cheapest usually, and then probably Canada on those few games. I haven't heard of any place other than US having cheaper games. Like, just generally. The US has the cheapest game prices.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to Eli. What have you been playing?
So I've been playing. Okay, let me remember. So I played a little bit more of Ever Oasis, but not a lot because I already was pretty much done with it. Wrote my review. Check it out. I think I gave it an 8.8. It's good, great even. I was surprised though the spread on Metacritic of like the review scores. There was a huge range. So the average was a 78. But the scores range from 50s to 90s. And it wasn't just like 190. There were 5 90s, I think.
Wow.
And then like 2 or 3 50s, like a few 60s. So like people were all over the place on this game. So if it's one of those things, one of those cases. And I mean, generally I'd say trust a Metacritic score if if there's a small standard deviation, if a lot of the scores are centered. And you read the review so you know what you're getting yourself into. But in this case, I mean, the range of scores is so wide that I wouldn't take the 78 on face value. In fact, there are probably more 90s and 50s than there are 70s and 80s. So this might in fact be a game that you really like. That's a recommendation I'll make about that. I played through another dungeon in Persona. I'm now 25 hours into the game, and I realized that there are 7 dungeons in total. So at this rate, it will take me 100 hours. And this is a problem because Persona 5 is an excellent game. Like, I love it very much. But I don't have the time to play that game 100 hours. And so I have multiple trains of thoughts. Number one is I can just go at it and try to get it done as fast as possible. I might have it done in, 3 weeks. Like, if I just went at it and hammered it out. Maybe less. Maybe 2 weeks. 2.5. Or I could like do a dungeon a week, which is the one I'm leaning on right now the most. Or I could just not play it anymore, and it would save me literally 60 hours of my life, And when you're looking at the raw total there, it's like how many other games could I finish in that 60 hours? Like, I've got a giant ass backlog I gotta get down. What else could I do?
But how many of them are Persona 5 though? All of them.
That's true. So like so I think what I've done is I've compromised with myself at doing a dungeon a week. Because I know that's like manageable for me, and then I'll spend my other time trying to play like Spanish games. Yesterday I installed. Yesterday I turned my PS4 into Spanish, and I installed Mass Effect Andromeda because although it maybe wouldn't have been the next game I wanted to play, it's got Spanish. So yeah.
Weird.
What else did so Persona is very good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I don't think I've played anything else.
Okay. Well, good luck on your quest with Persona. So how long does a dungeon take that you've played?
So, I mean, dungeons themselves don't take very long, but a lot of the daily life activities and stuff are what takes a while. So, like, there's a cycle. So there will be a dungeon that you have to complete within a certain number of days, and whenever you're not in a dungeon, you can do like life things, like courting people, hanging out, whatever. I mean, I think the breakdown's probably, gosh, I don't know, maybe 2/3 to 1/3, 2/3 doing daily activities and 1/3 in dungeon. Maybe a little bit more time in the dungeon because there's also some side stuff you can do. But I'd say each round, I don't know, a dungeon itself maybe like 3 hours, maybe maybe a little bit more. But in terms of I mean, I've spent 25 hours and I'm like gonna start my third dungeon soon, so that just, I guess, gives you a little bit of an idea. That's 12 hours, I guess, in terms of each cycle. So yeah, it's a lot. And the other thing is, if you die, you restart from the last save, so sometimes you can be going back half an hour. One thing I really do like about this game, though, and I don't think Persona 4 did this, is that it pretty much gives you a save point right before a boss. And the bosses... What?
Persona 4 didn't do that because I'm playing Persona 5 too. But yeah, Persona 4 didn't have a.
Persona 4 didn't have that.
They call it.
So I remembered correctly because I remember when I was playing Persona 4, there'd be instances where I like traversed several floors of a dungeon, and I'd be like going in to face the boss, and the boss would be like a 45-minute affair, and I would just be terrified that at any moment I could die and lose like 2 hours of progress, and I'd be scared shitless. But in Persona 5, fortunately, there are some safe rooms, and there is a save point right before the boss. So that definitely eases me a little bit.
It's crazy. So, Mike, what have you been up to?
I've been playing some Persona 5, Overwatch, but I got Crash Bandicoot kind of early. And, yeah. So, I've been playing that. Illegally. I mean, legally. But, just Overwatch and Crash. Crash is kind of awesome. It's definitely a pretty true remake to all three games. I really love it. I mean, I was always kind of a big fan of Crash. I mean, one of the games, I kind of grew up with. Yeah, I mean, I know I grew up with Mario and all that too, but Crash, I was around for all that, so... It's really nice to kind of see it back. I mean, I watched Crash Live and Burn. Same thing with Spyro and all that. I played all those games, and it's very true. Like the remake is on point. Everything is on point. Like the gravity isn't exactly the same, but literally it's a great 4K remake. I can't say anything bad about it. Like I like it just as much as I did back then. Crash 3 was always my favorite. I ran through Crash 1. I'm going to save Crash 2 and 3 for when the game properly comes out. But, I'm like, I don't know if anyone got the plat yet, because I know a few people are early, but I'm going to try to get the plat tonight, because I'm the first guy to get it,
Huh. So before we go, Mike, you're kind of quiet.
Oh, sorry about that.
You can go ahead and, speak a lot louder, actually.
Yeah, I mean, is this good? Because, I mean, I'm, right near my phone, but I don't know if it's working, because, my internet's kind of choppy. So,
no, you're sounding better now. You're a little closer.
Okay.
A little bit better. But if you can speak even louder, man, fill your lungs.
Yeah, I don't know. My internet was mediocre, earlier. But, yeah, it's total ass right now, so I apologize. But, yeah, I totally recommend Crash Bandicoot. It's a great 4K remake. So,
nice. Because... Yeah, I remember I bought, I think, the first one and played it for a bit on the PS3, and I think I might have bought the other two on some sale, but I haven't played them, and then, I see this, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to play it, even though I didn't play the other ones.
Yeah, Crash 1 is my least favorite. I'm telling you, Crash 3 is my favorite. Same thing with Spyro. Spyro 3 is my favorite. Year of the Dragon. Crash 3 Warped is, 100% my fave, but, like I said, I recommend the remake. If you have a PS4, it's only $40 too. It's not a full price game. You're getting 3 games. Not everything is exactly true, but it's just great in general. It really is. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. I didn't find any problems with it. The gravity's not exactly the same, for like maybe people who are like speedrunners are like, I liked it back then, like Mario jumped cleaner, etc., etc. But it's that it's that one of those kind of things where of course it's not going to be exactly true, but they're going to do it the best they possibly can, and you got to appreciate what they did do, and what they have done. So I appreciate it. I love it. I recommend it for everybody.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Like the
Dude, really,
level of detail
like
have gone to, and how like perfect everything matches up is insane. Name of the trilogy.
It is like it's 100%. Like you don't understand. Like when you're playing it, you're gonna be like, wow, this is exactly how I remembered it. Like, look, some things they might have changed, or like oh, the bonus boxes in Crash 1 count. That's a Crash 2 and 3 thing. That's maybe just to add a little gameplay value to it. You know what I mean? Like those were always kind of things that were always like viable. I guess things like maybe they didn't have to add it. For purists, they're not gonna like it. But everything else, like I said, it's like 98% pure and true. Somebody who really enjoyed the series back then and liked it, it's I recommend it.
Nice.
What I'm finding interesting about this is, like, I've remarked on it hundreds of times, and I fucking love you, Mike, because if this is like their first episode, they just be like, this Mike guy, he's got some good opinions. And then like the next episode, we're going to like taunt you with like some of your classic favorites. We all know the games that I can like wave like a flag in front of a bull, and you'll just like start spewing invective about how Miyamoto is ruining Nintendo.
I mean, he already is.
And like they're like, what happened to this Mike guy? Like last episode, he's all like, "This game's good. I liked it. It was great." Oh man, good stuff.
Right.
Good review.
Nice. All right. So Unoclay, what have you been up to?
I had a really busy gaming weekend, and I'll keep it as in bounds as possible. You guys, I was talking to the listeners. I was talking these guys' ears off on the chat throughout. That we have like kind of a podcast chat we do throughout the week with what's going on with games and whatever. We're just playing and stuff. And was at a gaming convention in the Philadelphia area that I can now confidently recommend to people from anywhere in the reasonable region. I wouldn't travel more than couple hundred miles at the most for this. This is not an E3 convention. This is not any of the other big ones that you're familiar with. It's a humble convention that's gotten bigger and bigger. I've mentioned it a couple other years on this podcast. In fact, it's called Too Many Games, and it happens outside of Philadelphia. They like to market it as like Philadelphia region, but that's like a joke. Mike can relate because it's like he lives in New York, and it's like how everyone who doesn't really live in New York sort of claims they live in New York, but they don't really. They really live in Jersey, but they kind of try not to tell you that. They're like, oh yeah, New York area.
I can't believe you guys have the same problem.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing.
Hilarious.
Like people say they're from Philly, and then you drill on them because I'm from Philly, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm really from.
Oh yeah.
I'm from Norristown. Like, dude, that's like 50 miles away from Philly. Like, what the hell? But it's near to Philly. It takes me about 35, 40 minutes to get there. It's in a big old. They probably get a lot cheaper rental space for a big warehouse type area than they would in the city. So it makes sense. And it's gotten bigger and bigger. They don't get too many of the big stars for the panels every year. Pretty much like Angry Video Game Nerd and Mike Matei and a few other people like Pat the NES Punk. Some smashers. Mewtwo King was there this year. And then, like, depending on your level of interest on YouTube personalities and things like that, they get a variety of different channels each year to show up. There were easily 50 panels this year, so no shortage of things you could go and see. A lot of them are kind of corny and silly stuff, like let's have a panel where we debate the worst Sonic game, and the line is around the block to get into that. I see, like, or whatever. And then there's other ones that are like a little more serious. I went to a panel. I want to give a shout out to the guys from My Life in Gaming podcast, which is a podcast specifically devoted to upscaling. Excuse me, it's not a podcast. It's a YouTube channel called My Life in Gaming, specifically about like upscaling technology and getting best picture out of old systems and modding old systems and stuff like that. And they're really cool.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, it's neat. They're really smart. Their channel is like the top-notch quality kind of YouTube thing you can find, because they do like classes on like how to learn some really complicated stuff on their channel, and you have to like really like watch and pay attention, and you can learn. And they're neat guys, and they're super, super retro nerds. So I went to their panel. they autographed my Frame Meister. For people who know what that is, it's my upscaling device, and they were honored because they said it was the first time someone had asked them to do it. And it was kind of a joke because it's like a piece of hardware, and I was getting them to autograph a piece of hardware they have nothing to do with, but they did classes on how to use it on their channel, so they thought that was funny. But it's a great con. It's a lot of a market. It's a marketplace. It's really, really big, like flea market style marketplace for like just at least 50, 60, 70 vendors. I'd have a hard time. I'd have a hard time even guessing. So much browsing, so many old carts, new carts, whole tables full of whatever you can imagine, whether it's T-shirts or, you know, games or whatever console you're hunting down. Some obscure, you know, tables for like import games, whatever. They had a free arcade this year with lots of arcade machines. They've had that the last several years. It was pretty big this year, with lots of like imported games or like lots of cabs for like fighting games. This is like a gamer's paradise is what I'm trying to tell you. And it's a $30 admission fee. So it's a lot cheaper than a lot of game cons, you know, that you might have to pay a lot more to get into, for one day. So it's neat. They had a lot of concerts. I'm not as familiar with all the musical guests they had this year. They had Arm Cannon, who I've heard and is good. I would see them. They're kind of like metal, chiptune rock. And Keith Apicary always shows up. And I think last year he did a rap show, which was really funny. And he rapped about how great Sonic and Sega is and everything. And it was goofy. And he fell off the stage a couple times and all that good stuff. You know, I didn't see too many concerts here. I was really busy with like seeing a lot of other things. You know, and did some shopping, picked up a copy of Box Kung Fu for NES, which is a classic, really simplistic early NES game that, you know, people, it's a black box NES game from the very launch of the system. So I'm not into collecting box copies, but I might collect the black boxes over a few years because they're neat looking to me. Picked up Contra Force, which is arguably the worst Contra game. I found out now. And it's not a cheap cartridge, but I got it for a little cheap. I got a little discount on it because at the end of the day, and I talked the guy down a few bucks. So I got it for about, well, I won't say what I paid for it, but it was enough, that, you know, it's more expensive than a game you'll buy at GameStop, for instance, now, for a game that's crappy from the 1980s, but it's Contra. So I had to have it, you know, so I got that. That was my big get for the day. That was my big expensive purchase. I was like all day, like eyeing up a few other old games like Swamp Thing and some really old NES games that I really wanted, but they're all really overpriced, like just crazy prices. I mean, I saw 4 copies of Little Samson, which is one of the most expensive NES games. All of them were like $1,200 and up. Like, you know, that's kind of the going price for that cart. Saw like 3 Flintstones at Dinosaur Peak or whatever it's called, which is even more expensive. Well, no, it was like $900 at a lot of the booths I saw. So a lot of really valuable NES cartridges circulating in one building for a day. But to wrap up, the funniest thing that happened at this con by far was Angry Video Game Nerd James Rolfe and his sidekick Mike Matei, who do, you know, the AVGN stuff, and they do the you know, they do James and Mike Mondays, and they do the Board James series, which I really love. Like, it's one of their funniest series. They're always kind of like the big guests because I think they live pretty near to here, and they show up like every year, and they do signings, and they're walking around the con and stuff like that, and you can approach them. They're really nice, but in my experience, like, they'll just say hi to you and talk for a minute. I missed my chance with James. I was really mad. I'm telling you what, like, I didn't know what it was when I walked up. He had a table of stuff from his nerd basement, not a joke.
Nice.
Like, yeah, like stuff that's in his own collection. And he's said before, like on some of the episodes, how he just has so many games and he has so much stuff and he has duplicates. So he was like having a flea market basically at his table. Yeah. But he wasn't there when I walked by, and I didn't know that it was his stuff. And I talked to the guy minding the table. I said, well, what is this table? Because it just seemed odd. There was like no theme to it. It was just like a bunch of different stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, this is the AVGN table. And I was like, oh, I thought where he's going to sign autographs later, you know, or whatever. Then I find out these are his games that he's offloading because he has too many. And one of them was a copy of Yoshi's Island, which is really banged up. And I really wanted to get a hold of, like, I lost my copy years ago that I used to have, or I loaned it to somebody, or who knows, whatever. It's what kids do. Stupid. And I didn't buy it, and I ran back over later when I heard, and literally as I got there, this other guy has it in his hand. He's like getting it autographed by yeah, and it was like $30, which is the going rate for that game, like on cart, and it was like it was really old and used looking. It was really banged up, but it was like the point, that I could have had it. AVGN, at least one of his copies of Yoshi's Island, it would have been cool, but the highlight of the day was kind of, I think this was a real highlight for the people that stuck around to see it. Mike and AVGN were going to play a classic game on stage, and they didn't announce what games they were going to play. They were going to do it with on a television or a monitor, and everybody in the audience could watch them. And I don't think that either of them claim to be like super dope ass, like hardcore pro gamers, but they're both decent. They play a ton of games. And, so Mike went first. They were building the suspense, of course, because James wasn't even on stage at that point. Like, it was just like Mike playing Ninja Gaiden 3, which is incredibly hard. And he played through it and did a really admirable showing. This is with no cheats. This was no it was only playing the game as written, originally. No special codes, no cheats, whatever. And he got close. He got to the final board. And then ran out of continues, and he was pretty pissed because I actually talked to him afterwards, and he kind of blamed the hardware a little bit because he said the TV they were playing on had a little bit of delay because they were using some kind of like emulator software to play the game. They weren't using original hardware. Kind of not the greatest there, but hey, whatever. I didn't say anything about that. Like, I was like, whatever. And he did like kind of like, he's like, it was really stressful to be up on that stage doing that when I knew there was a little bit of a delay. And then the game is hard as nails. But the true highlight, it might have been my highlight of the day, like in some ways, because it was truly epic, like a truly epic gaming moment. James got up. I kind of had to leave. I had to go to the bathroom. I'd been sitting there for like an hour watching Ninja Gaiden 3, and I was like, I had to go to the bathroom. And then I walked around a little bit and came back, and James was on stage playing Contra 1. And I thought, oh, what a passé choice. But he wasn't using the Konami code. So he was starting like from the beginning of the game, no extra lives, just like kind of run through Contra and claiming he's going to beat it. And again, we're using this emulator software. And to wrap up, what happened was I asked the guy sitting next to me, I said, how's he doing? And he's like, he's doing really well for the fact that the game keeps glitching and enemies keep disappearing while he's fighting them. Like, he'll literally be walking along and a boss will disappear or reappear. And Contra's hard. It's not the hardest, but it can be challenging if you don't use extra lives. It is challenging if you don't use extra lives. And like I was watching, he's on level 7, and the game does start to completely glitch out, and like pits are disappearing. Like, literally, the pits in the ground are disappearing. So he's shouting to the microphone, doing a let's play kind of like, holy shit, how am I supposed to know where to jump? And he's managing to pull it off, and he's getting down to his final life or two, and he keeps getting an extra life just in the nick of time. And then like losing it. He gets to the final boss, and the final boss literally never appears. He just starts shooting at him, and there's bullets flying at him, but you can't see the boss. And this is on screen, and he's playing with a full crowd of witnessing him do it. And I don't know if there's video circulating of it, but it is completely awesome in that he manages to beat the final boss of Contra without being able to see the boss on the screen. Yeah, it was awesome. It was literally completely the coolest thing ever. People are cheering and yelling, and we're shouting. And if there's a recording out there, you'll hear me shouting on it because I'm just like fucking going crazy. I'm just like, dude, do it. I'm shouting from the back because I'm like, this is the moment, man. This is your moment. If you can do this, this is truly like kind of a gold star in your gaming record. And he totally did it. When standing ovation, people are screaming and cheering. It was really, really awesome, like esports kind of moment, because it was just like you felt really bad for him. You're like, this is over. He has no lives left, and the boss is invisible. It's like the final boss of the game. So that was kind of the end of the day. He did that at literally the end of the day of the convention, and then that was it. So it was really awesome. It was a great con. It's called Too Many Games, and it's every June in Philadelphia area. People should try to come down if you're in the area. So awesome.
That's kind of crazy to be able to have to fight something that's invisible and you can't tell what the heck you're doing.
Yeah, imagine any classic NES game fighting Bowser like if he was invisible, like trying to get past Bowser in Super Mario Brothers or anything you're familiar with, trying to kill. I mean, Ganon in Zelda 1 does turn invisible, and that's like the gimmick, but the game is built to have that gimmick. This was completely like unexpected. He's playing it on the fly, and the giant snake-headed beast monster just isn't there, but there's bullets flying at him, and he he's clearly done this game before, because he knew, you could tell he was like just compensating for it. He's like, well, I know where to stand and I know what to do and I know the basic gist of what to do here. I just got to do it now, and it was really cool. It was the greatest. I'm smiling just thinking of it.
Awesome. Well, you may not have gotten Yoshi's Island there, but don't fret because it's on the new SNES Classic.
Nice segue, bro. Great
And
way.
I was holding on to that. So yeah, it was funny because we were talking today, and Unoclay usually messages me the day of the podcast saying, what's the rundown for this week, and I was like, I don't know, but let me check just to make sure. And like, oh yeah, I got nothing, and he's poking fun at that, and then like an hour or so later, I just see like a bunch of posts saying like, yeah, there's a new a new Classic Edition console from Nintendo. It's the SNES. I'm like, well, we got something to talk about.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, but, just in the nick of time, Nintendo saving our podcast.
I know. But so here's the rundown of it. There's it's $80 versus the the NES is $60. They have two different versions. The European one, which is like the smoother, I guess, sleeker look. I think that was the actual like mini console back then, or the slim version, I think. And then they have the regular, North American boxed version, the purple one. It's being shipped, or it's launching September 29th and being shipped to the end of 2017, and that's about it. They're at least making it clear at this point. They said there's going to be more units than the NES Classic, so I guess that's good, but I guess don't get your hopes up.
So we'll get like 8 instead of 5.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet 15, bro. 15.
The cords are apparently longer. They're 5 feet versus the NES is 3 feet. And it also comes with 2 controllers, which is smart. I don't know why they didn't do that with the NES, because like for multiplayer, there's only 2 controllers anyway, so you might as well put in both. It's like people are going to buy another one. Just raise the price $10 and then put in whatever. But surprisingly, it actually comes with a new game, or a new old game, Star Fox 2, which has never been released. And I always thought this was weird because I think they had like, as far as I'm concerned, like multiple points where they could have released this game to promote like a newer game, like maybe for Smash Brothers or some other port. I don't know. I think they had several opportunities, especially with Star Fox Zero. That would have been cool. But yeah, they're releasing this, and this unreleased sequel will mean more to the series than a return from 10 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad. It's like Star Fox Zero returning after 10 years. It's like Star Fox 2. Who cares about the Zero game?
Yeah.
And we were talking about it a couple of months ago. You were playing it, so that's kind of crazy.
I have a fan-made cart of Star Fox 2 here, but I talked quite a lot in the last segment, so I want you and Eli to bounce around on this a minute before I jump in on this. And if Mike, for the listeners, Mike had some connection problems that he was talking about. He's going to try and rejoin in a second. But why don't you guys shoot the Shay show, hey ho on this for a minute? I just talked enough in the last segment. I mean, I'm excited about it. I want to talk about it, but people are sick of my voice by now.
Okay. I think the games list is a lot better than the NES. I think
Definitely.
It's technically like fewer. I don't know. I didn't actually do a numbers.
It probably is fewer games because the NES had 30.
Okay, yeah, this is like 21 or 22. But like on the NES one, there were like a couple of duds you could see in there, and this one is like the only. Like, I haven't played all these games, but the only one I would consider a weird choice is Kirby's Dream Course. And that's kind of like, whatever. They tossed it in there. It's fine. But they have Super Mario RPG. They have the proper Kirby game, Superstar. They have Mega Man X, Yoshi's Island, like I said. Pretty much anything you could think of as like a SNES go-to game is on here.
Well, that's a tall statement, but it does have a lot of games, so I'll say that. Oh, yeah.
I'd say so.
Oh, shit.
Eli, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played that many SNES games, unfortunately, because I'm not old. Just kidding. But no, I mean, it seems pretty cool. I don't know if I'll buy it just because $80 is kind of a lot of money for something that, I mean, you could theoretically get by other means. And like, I'd rather spend that money elsewhere. But it's still really cool, and it's nice that I was able to finally like like I know a lot of people that wanted the NES Classic that couldn't get their hands on it, like people that generally aren't into video games anymore, but like the professor I work for at my university, like my cousin, like they haven't played games in a long time. They don't own systems, or like they may own one, but they don't play that often. They were like complaining that they couldn't find one of these.
I'm pretty sure it was just scalpers selling to other scalpers.
Oh, interesting. It could be.
It seems like no one would go. Actually, Robbie from IGN, I forget he had some numbers in his name, I forget, but Robbie Key, I know he got one because I have him on Facebook. That's about the only person I know who got one.
Yeah, I literally don't know anybody who has one. The mini NES, like I didn't try to get one. I would have got one if I would have tried. I mean, there was no stopping me if I'm going to get one, but I didn't need it. But yeah, this is big news. If they can commit to like having adequate supply, that's huge. Because if there's I think a SNES could do even better in terms of marketplace desire. I mean, NES and SNES are right there together. It's hard to even gauge which one might be more popular among the oldsters in the audience, as Eli would have it. I call it people with good taste. And but this is huge. I mean, like we'd heard it rumored for months. The mini SNES was a rumor for like a long time. I thought it was probably real, but we didn't really have like any data. And like, do we think this got announced today because there was a leak, or do we think the leak came because the announcement was coming today? Because it was like there was a leak just before it broke, like before Nintendo gave the official word, yes, it's real. I don't know. I was just curious about that. If that's been like, I wonder what happened there today. It seemed like it kind of snuck out a few hours before.
I don't know. This thing was like rumored for like months. So I don't really think anything played their hand. I mean, like a lot of companies will have something like leaked or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna wait until like we were gonna do it anyway," sort of thing.
Right.
But
go ahead.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they change this time because it seems like they've taken some feedback from the NES, in a bunch of ways, like I listed before. But I wonder if they're actually gonna have pre-orders open like several months early so that they might actually have supply, because like they said in an interview, it was either with IGN or whatever, I got it from a Game Explained video, but regardless, they're saying they're only going to stock it from September to the end of the year, or ship it at least, so it's still going to be in short supply like the NES. But maybe if they open up pre-orders, they can actually like figure out how many pre-orders they need to fill, and then how many can be on the shelf.
Yeah, that's such a strange question with this company of like, is that, because I'd like to think you're right with that, like that they would take pre-orders and then fulfill the pre-orders. The problem with that is, of course, lots of people place pre-orders and they cancel. And then there's a lot of scalper market that if the scalper market senses that like, oh wait, there's going to be enough, then the scalper market will drop off. And Nintendo knows all this stuff. They have probably a stable full of supply chain management experts considering all these things. And like, and the answer is always going to be like, Nintendo wants to make a profit, not have stuff sit on shelves. So they're going to have to try and figure out the happy medium for that. Like, because they would never just open pre-orders and then make that many, like of whatever the pre-order numbers were coming back, because they know that like that would end up with stock on shelves in the end, like because people canceling and whatnot.
I don't know, would it? Because the NES, like everyone was always trying to look for it, but it was never there. So I don't think it would take them like that long for them to sell out. It's not like Amiibo where you print like 20 units of one thing and then you have 12 different things, and it's like, okay, well this particular Amiibo isn't interesting to a lot of people, so that's a lot of dead weight, and then this one is, and blah blah blah. It's just like, I don't know, right? I think it would be like a different case. Like I don't think it would be that hard for them to sell these.
What do you think, Eli? Like, you're the guy who thinks about the business angle a lot of this. Like, I mean, like, how do they handle the pre-order situation versus the demand? Like, think from Nintendo's angle, like, how do you figure this out? Like, if you're a company that's conservative and don't want stuff sitting on shelf selling, They won't.
They already know how many they're going to sell, and they're not going to, like, increase. I mean, remember the whole factory line thing? Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got to already be producing them, and they've only got a limited time frame, and they're not going to expand. It's going to be substantially more to expand production once you start adding additional production lines. So they already know how many units they're producing, and no sort of pre-orders are going to make them increase, I think, because they've already have it planned out, and they're probably already producing them, considering it's going to come out in September. So they've got no time. They're already probably producing maximum capacity for whatever amount of lines that they have set up.
Good point. It's a wise point. Yeah, I think a lot of us live in this like on-demand society in our minds where it seems like everything is infinitely reproducible and makeable. Well, that's a really good point. I mean, it's like,
just to add really quick, I mean, it's like with the Switch stuff, like people are like, where is my supply? But you've got to understand that like once Nintendo sets up another supply line, that's something that's going to stick with them for, years. They can't just set up for 2 months and then shut down. They've got to completely redo a factory for production, stuff like that. So for them, they're going to save money if they, that's a one-time fee. So they need to set up at a consistent rate, not necessarily one where you produce 20 million units now, and then you've got factories that you transformed like 10 times as many as you needed for no reason.
Right. I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
So do you think this is something that they should be selling longer than like the 3 or 4 months that they're doing? Or is it just like, well, we'll get whatever sales we get out of this, and then there wouldn't really be much of a need to continue?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they're producing what they're producing. They're going to sell what they sell, and there's not really going to be much elasticity.
But do you think it could sell longer than what they're actually selling? Sorry,
I mean, probably.
It's hard to know. We don't know how many they're going to make.
They're going to play it. They're going to play it safe, though, and they said that they're going to. It sounds like they want to get off it this year. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said that they're going to finish production this year. And they probably have Virtual Console coming at one point.
Yeah. What games? Like switching gears a little bit. I mean, yeah, we're really shooting in the dark here because we don't know numbers. They haven't given us anything here to go on, so we're really guessing kind of at this point, I'd say, and we should acknowledge that. But I mean, at any point, what the games are the most interesting thing here, and then the listeners are probably rolling their eyes over all this business talk to some degree because we're all nerding out on, maybe not, who knows, but what the games are the big story here. And you mentioned Star Fox 2, of course, is the big it's a officially unreleased game that should be noted. It's going to be the big news story, so I think people will be hearing about this. But if they're not aware, Star Fox 2 is a game that was prototyped and developed and never released in America. And then it's circulated. The ROM's been available and circulated online. It is a Super FX game, which is similar to the original Star Fox. But the game itself, having been, as I recounted on a couple episodes ago, I won't go in detail, but it's very different from original Star Fox, but it's to a Nintendo hardcore. It's super interesting because if you played original Star Fox and then you've played later Star Foxes on the DS or the 64 or anything else, you see a lot of the ideas completely directly first originated in Star Fox 2, all range mode and all kinds of different things that are staples of the series now. It would almost be like if, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example for Nintendo's other series. If Zelda 2 had never existed and then you just jump ahead and there's games where Link has his down thrust, and then later you find out down thrust originally came from Zelda 2, but you'd never known it because it was never released, something like that. So, yeah, it's really neat. It's certainly not a fully polished game, I'll tell you that. And people who are going to get it and be excited to play it, be excited with a grain of salt in more of a historical Nintendo sense than, oh boy, this is one of the greatest games never released. It's interesting. And it's really got some interesting ideas going on in it, but it's a very rough-looking game by modern standards because it's those wireframe graphics that were familiar to you from Star Fox 1. If you've never played it, just watch a video. It's very framey, and it's very wireframe graphics. It's pushing the limits of the hardware at the time, and it looks rough to modern eyes. So you got to come into it with a certain amount of tolerance for old games, in a very specific sense for Star Fox 2. But other than that, other than being excited to play a game you've never played before, possibly, did anything leap out at you guys, you younglings, on this list of what, you know, maybe games you've never had the chance to play but you've always heard were good, or just games you're excited to revisit? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely a ton. Let me look at the games list again real quick. But I remember looking at it just because I hadn't played that many. I mean, like, I own Earthbound on the Wii U, but I still haven't played through it. I haven't played the old Castlevania games. I've only played newer ones. I haven't played Super Punch-Out. I've only played the NES one. I haven't played the Super Mario RPG. I haven't played... Like, I barely played any of these games, and there are a lot of them that I definitely... Like, you said it yourself. There's 15 games here, and they're all freaking excellent. Like, or at least, like, the vast majority are. And I'd be very excited. I wish buying this would give it to you on your Switch or your 3DS, so that way I could play it on the go.
I know. That is the only regrettable thing. I'll be tied to this system forever. Like, but that's the Nintendo nostalgia factor. They're unwilling. I mean, someone like me, I love that because I'm the king of nostalgia. I'm sitting here surrounded by like old games in my studio here. Like, it's just like it's my passion. And to me, playing it on the original hardware or something like this, where it's like a tribute to the original hardware, is really awesome. Like, I really love that. But I totally get where you're coming from. That you're going to be playing Earthbound, and you're going to be like, you know, Earthbound is a long RPG, classic, like, RPG style, like, game that is way better as an on-the-go kind of game these days than it is as, like, a tied to a TV kind of game. But, you know, that most of the other games here are, like, more action games, more adventure-y action games that, you know, I could go either way on. That I'm like, no, you know, you should sit down in front of a TV and play it with an original controller or an original like controller, rather than like in some like pick up and play for 2 minutes kind of situation. These are games that are works of art that in some ways I feel passionately about, but I try to see it both ways. Like, should be maybe appreciated in their original format when possible. So I mean, some of those games you rattled off, like Super Punch-Out isn't a favorite of mine. I think the NES is better. But I'd say like 6 or 7 of the ones you rattle off are such classics. I got excited to hear you say you've never played them. That I'm like, oh my God, those games are so good. You know, like just so many good games on this system. It's ridiculous. Like, I looked at the list and thought, I have played virtually everything here, and the ones I haven't are games I don't want to play, like Kirby games, like, you know, or whatever, like that I don't care at all about. But you know, yeah. I mean, if you had to pick one, what's the first game you get that system? Like, what do you think you plug in first? Like, you know, Eli. What are you most curious about? You know, or most interested to play first on the system? I'm curious, like what leaps out to this.
So what I'd probably do is that Donkey Kong Country. First I'd probably knock out 2 of the platformers I'm most interested in. So I'd grab Donkey Kong Country and then Yoshi's Island, then I would go ahead and probably. Okay, so I've actually played Final Fantasy 3 because that's 6, so I've played through that one.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so after that, I'd probably head into Secret of Mana or Earthbound, because those are some more hardcore RPGs. And then all these games are stuff, you know, I want to play. So
that's awesome. That's so good to hear, man. Because like,
although I don't know about Super Ghouls and Ghosts. This is the only one where I'm like looking at it and I'm like, should I be like playing that game? Like,
I've never played that game actually. I've heard it's very good. It's just
okay.
It's super classic. I've just never gotten around to playing it yet. So that's one I would be interested in for sure. That's neat. Matt, what about you, man? Like, what leaps out at you here? Like, you know, you're probably in the same boat of like many of these you may not have encountered before.
Yeah, I would say most of them I haven't played. At the very least, to completion, at least. Most of them I've dabbled in or whatever, you know, Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, Link to the Past, Mega Man X, Yoshi's Island, the second remake of Star Fox, for crap's sakes.
Yeah, right,
the 3D one. Yeah, like, these consoles are really cool, but honestly, it's one of those things where I'll be like, that would be cool if I had it, but I'm probably not going to buy it because quantity overwhelms me, and I'll be like, there's so many games to play. I'm gonna end up playing none of them because there's too many options. Or I might try it for a bit and then like get disinterested because like there's too many and it would take forever to get through all these, even though they're amazing. So it's just one of those mental things. But
interesting. So it's not for you, is what you're saying. Like as a system, it's not the kind of thing you're going to be lining up to buy on day one.
No, I mean it is really cool, and I wouldn't like shrug it off if someone like just handed it to me or anything like that. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm never. It's like a Steam library. Like someone dumped 20 games on you out of nowhere. It's like, what do I do with this? Where do I start? Crap, and then you get nothing done.
Right.
But
that's interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna just say if I like, I don't know, played one at someone's house or whatever, I'd probably try like Super Ghouls and Ghosts or like Contra 3 or something like you can jump into quickly to start off with, just to like get the feel of it.
Contra 3 is so good as multiplayer. That's another thing about this. There's so many really good multiplayers. Like
I forgot about that. Because they give you a second control.
Like really good, like for multiplayer RPG, which is a rare-ish thing, especially in this. I didn't even know. I had remarked maybe like a year ago on this podcast, I started playing it, and I have a friend who's beat it several times so much that he can recite like sections of it to me, and he comes over and plays. Occasionally, we play that game. I'm not a big RPG guy. I say it all the time. It's a really neat adventure action RPG hybrid, like kind of like a mix of like Zelda-esque and RPG elements, and it's really neat. But you can play 2 players, and that makes it really more attractive to me to put in and work a little bit on when he's over and we play together. And Contra 3 is like such an utter classic. I mean, just so many. Oh my God, this like hearing that people will get to experience these for the first time. It makes me the deepest happiness as a gamer I can think of, because I'm like, Yoshi's Island is a big controversy, or it's been not a controversy, like a sore point for retro gamers, because there's never been a way to play the original coded release, like the original version of Yoshi's Island ever, except the SNES version if you have the old hardware. Every version they've ever released since then has been like a different. It's hard to put into words, but it's not the original exact ROM file of the Super FX version that you're going to get from the Super NES.
So this was different, I guess, between the 2 versions then.
That's going to tax me to explain a little bit. I know that the version you could download on the SNES, on the 3DS, I believe it's the GBA version, which isn't, and I may be misspeaking, and I apologize if I am. It's easily Googleable, but I'm not going to do that right now while I'm talking. But I know that this is the first time, and people are blowing up over that alone, that it's like, we're going to get proper Yoshi's Island with the proper graphics and the proper Mode 7 like effects that the SNES did, and not a remake effectively that looks a lot like the original but isn't quite the same. And that was, in fact, like I started with that story about the AVGN and trying to get that card. That's what's been bothering me, that I need to get it, because I played that game a ton when I was a kid. Yoshi's Island is as good as it gets. Like, it's as good at Nintendo as it gets. It's up there with like the level of Mario 3 greatness. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that. It's a really, really amazing game. And I played it so much when I was young, and then I must have traded it away to somebody else, and I haven't played it on the original hardware since then. So that's alone, for a lot of people, I have a feeling like that, along with Super Mario World and like the Zelda game, would be enough to justify getting this, just to be able to play those again in a native-ish type setting. I mean, I can't even think. There's so many good things on your Contra 3. Like I said, a multiplayer game. You just can't beat it. It's so fun. It's so awesome, over the top Contra like action. It kind of like defines the series in a lot of ways. All the Contra games minus Contra Force are really good. I don't know. So you can hear the enthusiasm from me. I probably won't buy it. I have most of those games sitting here, and the ones I don't, I'm going to get at some point on cart, most likely, or some other means to play them. I don't need another like console sitting around. I'm not even joking. There is a Super Nintendo original sitting like 8 inches from my computer right now. So it's not like I need another version of it sitting here. But I'm super thrilled that it came true and it's coming out for people. It's super neat. So
I actually bought a Super Nintendo a couple of years ago, and I haven't finished the games I have for it, but I think I would rather like maybe buy one cart and then just play that specifically, just because it'd be so cool.
That's a great way to handle retro gaming, Matt. Like that's something I struggle with, because I used to be that way, where I limited myself, because I totally got what you're saying about too many choices equals like kind of disinterest. And that I'm fighting my collector bug, because it's also like these carts are going up and up in price. So I'm fighting battles with myself all the time about if I don't buy it now, it's going to probably be more expensive later. And maybe that ship is sailed. I mean, Super Nintendo prices for cartridges are beyond what anybody would believe unless you go shopping for them. They're oftentimes double, triple what they were originally, and even more for the even medium rare carts. That's another reason this is great to exist, because that's something people are finding out constantly. I see it at the game conventions. I see it in personal friends. They can't believe that if they want to go and buy a copy of like Smash Brothers for N64 and just play it with their kids, they can't believe they have to pay like $80 for it. They're like, what do you mean? It should be like $1. And it's like, no, you didn't get the memo. Like these are rare now. Like they're becoming more rare, like vinyl records or anything. Like that you have to. Only the super common ones that nobody wants are cheap anymore. It's even the good stuff like that is super common. Mario World will set you back like $30, and that was one of the most common carts ever for the system, and just to get a copy of it at a game con, you probably paid $30, I guess, for it or something like that. So the price of the system might sound a little high for $70, but if you get 2 controllers with it, and all these games, it's more than justified the price. It's almost like super fair in a way. So yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess one question is, do you think Nintendo would lean more on making these classic re-releases versus trying to add more support for Virtual Console? Like maybe, I haven't done the math, so maybe this is not even realistic, but maybe like they figure, okay, we'll sell this many units of this SNES with these games, and it'll sell better than having, a bunch of individual releases on the eShop and trying to cater that. Because you're going to get some duds that'll sell like maybe 50 copies or something, like Plock or some weird game.
I mean, like, I don't know if I understand your question. You're saying like are you saying they're bundling maybe lesser great games like for a profit here? Is that what you're getting at?
No, I guess my question is, do you think they won't bother doing or trying to cater more eShop games because making these physical re-releases will sell better than whatever they could do on the eShop?
Oh.
Like, do you think that Virtual Console market is kind of gone? I mean, obviously it hasn't been put on the Switch yet, but
right.
Do you
Eli,
think that's kind of a lost.
Like Eli, you digging this question? You got what he's saying? Like I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I want to give you a chance to take a shot at it.
Sorry, what was the question? I zoned out.
All right. Do you think Nintendo would make more money doing these console re-releases than they would making, I guess, individual sales on the eShop, like trying to cater more games?
I think that they make more money doing both. I don't think it needs to be an either or. Because if you think about it this way, the consoles that they sell are the NES and SNES Classic are free money. It takes probably $10 to build one of those, and the games they put on there are free, minus licensing fees if they're third-party games. But even that's not going to be substantial. So that's like pure profit, and a lot of those people don't own Nintendo systems right now and wouldn't buy them on the eShop anyway. So that's why that's a good idea. And then bring it onto the eShop, because why not more sales? And if they're going to have this subscription service, then that'll bring in more revenue. So I don't think it needs to be an either or, but I do want to point out that like you don't lose sales by putting out the physical. You definitely get more money than you would otherwise.
Okay, so maybe I thought of this question poorly.
It's interesting. It's an interesting question, man. It's like it's worth considering.
And if you think about it, that's like the equivalent of, even if if SNES games are $7 a piece, like who's bought 10 SNES games of Virtual Console? Like nobody.
Yeah.
Well, some, not everybody. Yeah.
I guess here's a better question. Do you think they will like not put as much effort into getting weird Virtual Console games? They'll just focus on like, here's the 20 highlights and then everything else can go blow, sort of thing? Because I mean, like on Wii U, obviously that console wasn't really doing well, so they didn't really have as much incentive. But I'm just wondering if after that they're like, well, you know what? Maybe those games aren't really worth it. We'll just stick to like the main games.
it's hard to say. I mean, like, with respect to your original question folded into this question, I mean, for answer it backwards, answer the question you just asked. Like, I think we don't know yet. We have no clue. They're not giving us much clue of what Virtual Console will be when it arrives. Like, we don't know. So anything we would be saying, like, it's really, really guessy. And I'm hesitant to say much on that, like, because we could make dream lists of what we wished in it, you know, or what we think they might do. You know, it's hard to read the tea leaves there, but kind of. I mean, no, I think your original question is kind of like a decent question, and like what I think to myself is like, I personally think they would make a lot more money on the eShop once the install base is there. Like, assuming that the sales continue to be decent, reasonably so for Switch. I think lacking the distribution costs and lacking the like other factors that go into like shipping this item, there's a lot of lost money there that when they make this physical item. And then there's a lot of licensing that went into this because these aren't all Nintendo first party games that are on this system. So whatever deals they have to make and all that to get these games on the system, this is a nostalgia play that there's less profit being made than if they just like got Capcom to agree to let them put you know, a game on the eShop, or get Konami to let them put a game on the eShop, or just their own game like straight into the eShop. And like it's really hard to gauge again because we don't get firm numbers on like how things sell on the eShop, you know, digital copies alone. Whereas this, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, overall, I think this is one of those things that's like a little bit of like they lose a little bit more profit. I don't know. They make less profit than they would otherwise in other mediums, but it's really good for the brand, and it's really good to get the nostalgia factor flowing, remind people how awesome Nintendo is. And that's why they're willing to put the money into it and even like, you know, make less money on it in the end. You know, like, if they wanted to make money forever on it, they should be making it for a lot longer and make it available for a lot longer. Once they set up that factory and start pounding these things out, well, then they're going to shut it down after a few months. Again, it's like a loss of money there. They're leaving money on the table if they don't sell this to every single person who wants it. I feel like it's a flag. It's a flag you wave. Flags don't do much in war, but they rally the troops. And, you know, this is that kind of thing. You know, it's like, you know, like get the nostalgia juices flowing, get the old fans fired up, remind them how great we are, you know. And even if like, you know, instead of making like 80% profit on each game here, we make like only like 50% profit on each game, you know, after all the other fees are factored in, it's still worth it to them. Clearly they're doing it, you know, they're doing it. So there's money in it for them, but there's also other factors that are probably driving this decision. So I don't know. I think it's really telling of how many of those games aren't Nintendo's own games that are on here, you know, that they're willing to go out and do that it's like, that's not easy. These are old games. These are old properties, and people like Konami and Capcom and everybody else take their properties really seriously. Mega Man, Castlevania, Contra, these are the biggest names in classic gaming, you know? So I don't know, you know, who knows what kind of deals have to be struck for that. Maybe they're easy. Maybe they're hard, you know?
Yeah. So I wonder if this kind of gives us a sign of when Virtual Console will come out, because this comes out September, so maybe Virtual Console won't come until next year. I mean, I know they said they're doing their online stuff next year, and maybe you could assume from that, but maybe they're also doing it next year because they don't want to drive people away from this. I mean, I doubt they would launch the Virtual Console with all of these games anyway, or 20 games anyway, but maybe they're just going to hold back on that so then this thing can kind of get its head out there. And then after they're like, hey, Virtual Console's up now that you played all those.
I don't know. I don't know if that would like affect their decisions or not. I think they have limited bandwidth to like get stuff done is definitely a factor, like no doubt. I don't know. I personally, I wouldn't think that. I mean, sure, Nintendo doesn't want to clutter the news, like, and catch you confused about what they've got in the pipeline, you know? So there's that, like, that it's like, well, we have the Super NES Mini coming out. We also have this online service coming out. Yeah, they won't want them to come online at the same time, you know, like, or be live or whatever you want to say at the same time. Exactly. But I don't know if they'd, like, hold the whole online service, like, because of this mini SNES. Like, well, I don't know.
I mean, I think they're, like, the whole online infrastructure is delayed because they need it to be. I just mean, like, the Virtual Console in general, because I mean, like, the Virtual Console could technically launch whenever the heck they feel like it. The online is just playing online multiplayer, but
Sure.
I wonder if they're just kind of bundling in there too, like, you know what? Well, we're gonna have this thing out. Maybe we won't launch the virtual console.
Hard to say, man. Hard to say. Like, again, there's a lot. The most interesting thing about this company is how they don't tell you everything in some ways. You know, you're always guessing. You know, they like to keep you guessing. They like us doing what we're doing here and like wondering and speculating and stuff. Like, they like that partly. So I think there's a little bit of that air of mystery in the whole virtual console thing. They just don't tell us anything, and that's it. There will be news when we have news to tell you is their attitude, and that's it. You know, so yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited for this SNES for other people as much as anything. I hoping the supply chain is good. I'm hoping the supply chain this time does not give them a black eye in the media and fans where it's like, good grief, like, come on, you know, this is insane. So that's my biggest fear. I'm like, please don't do that to people again. They're going to be really sad if you do that. So a lot of negative feelings when you do that. You backfire your very goal of the nostalgia thing when you do that to yourselves, you know. So hopefully not. Hopefully lessons learned, like they're saying they have. They're saying they've learned lessons.
All right, Eli, any final thoughts before we go?
Nope. I think I already got everything on this topic.
All right, so you can find me at the Facebook. You can find me. You can find me at the Facebook. You can find me at the Viking on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and VidMe. Eli, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Paul Salon, on NintendoEnthusiast.com, and on YouTube, Nintendo Network 64.
Cool. And Mike, you can find at Troyfulbuster on Twitch, I think. And Gaming Night. Is it Gaming Night Live still? I forget. I think it's Gaming Night Live on YouTube. Maybe that's also his Twitch. I don't know anymore. Whatever. Those are his two main usernames I know. Yeah, gosh dang it. I had a cold a week ago, and I felt better, but apparently not mentally. Unoclay, where can people find you?
That is just killing me because right before you did Mike, I was going to beg in and say like, please let me imitate Mike and pretend to be Mike and do his sign off. Like, and then you went ahead and got him, and then you call me Flea. So you can find me at my IGN. I will be posting about Xenoblade.
Yeah.
And Batman.
Yeah.
And you can
as you all shit.
What?
I was gonna try an imitation, then realize that I'm really good at Russian imitations, but then half the time when I try another type, it like still sounds Russian. So.
I'm good at no imitations, Flea. I apologize. I just love you. Yeah, if you want to like check me out on Switch, my friend profile, my friend code is on my profile at my Unoclay _Switch on Twitter. That's Unoclay, UNOCLAY _Switch on Twitter. And I'm up to like 50 plus friends now that we have the unified Nintendo network. So I'm loving it. I can jump in there and see people playing all kinds of stuff. But like if I had to take a quick glance, I'd say the most popular games like on the regular with the groups of people that I happen to be anecdotally friended with are Mario Kart, ARMS currently, and then the one that is surprisingly really popular is the Binding of Isaac. Like is very popular. I see it in a lot of people's like what they're playing right now kind of games. So I'm looking forward to getting that game eventually, as I've been. I just haven't gotten around to it because it looks like it's maintaining a lot of popularity with a lot of players. So yeah, look me up and send me a friend request. I always have room for more. It looks like we don't know if there's a limit to friend requests on the Switch, so I'm down with that.
All right. So wherever you're listening, you can find us at Just Another Castle on basically every platform on the internet. You can hit me up at the Manga Viking if you want to be a guest or talk or whatever. So until next time, we'll be gaming to Nintendo.